Hey everyone, welcome back to The Lobby, GameSpot's weekly video game hangout. I'm Mike Mahardy, your host. It is 11 a.m. here on Wednesday. What day is it? March 1st. First day of March.
So you say.
This is Pete Brown.
I've lost all sense of time.
Yeah, you've been playing Zelda for what, like 6 straight days?
Kind of, yeah, something like that.
You have a catheter in right now.
Yeah, I'm used to it now, though.
You have like an IV drip?
No.
Your dog's been feeding you. Enough of that. Callie Plaggy, what's up?
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much. I played Zelda yesterday for the first time. Well, I mean, apart from E3 demos and everything. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining, whether you're through Twitch or YouTube or GameSpot. We have the chat up here, so for all intents and purposes, you are here with us. We are going to be monitoring the chat. I have a lot of questions about a lot of huge topics today through Twitter that we tweeted out earlier. We have a giveaway, which I'll get to in a second. We have a few news items. But yeah, today we'll be talking Horizon Zero Dawn again. The embargo lifted like 2 weeks ago, but we're just going to kind of do
It's finally out this week.
One last Q&A for Pete, who reviewed it, and myself and Callie also played a lot of it. Zelda. As much as we can talk about Zelda, I'm going to kind of depend on you for what I shouldn't say. So if I say anything that breaks embargo, tell me afterward once I've already broken it. Okay? Sound good? I'm kidding. I'm not going to spoil anything to break embargo.
Avoid like proper nouns and stuff like that. And
this guy in this green tunic, well, he's not in a green tunic this time. That joke doesn't work.
I'm so well, yeah, I guess we can't even talk about certain...
This guy whose name is not Zelda.
We'll figure out. We'll come up with like a pseudonym. We could talk about names. What are you talking about? And then we're also going to be doing our final Nintendo Switch impressions. We have our review up, right?
The review of the Switch is up.
Yes.
Jimmy,
Zelda will be live tomorrow.
Jimmy, our tech editor, did our Nintendo Switch review that is up. We all looked it over, and we've got our own impressions though. We'll talk about that. And Middle-earth: Shadow of War leaked. So we're gonna, it leaked and then it was announced, and then there's gameplay coming next week. So we're gonna get into that, what we want from it. I loved the first game, but first we have a giveaway. GameSpot in a few minutes is gonna tweet something about a Gunner glasses, Gunner optics, I think you might call them.
Computer eyewear.
I'll give that to Pete so he can model that.
To wear.
GameSpot's gonna tweet. So follow GameSpot if you don't already on Twitter. Retweet the tweet about this giveaway, and then in a few days we will pick a winner, and you will get these in the mail. I believe this is U.S. only. Apologies to our U.K., Australia.
The only other countries.
I could list all, 235, I think. And I'm going to give this Razer mouse to Callie to show off. That is also part of the giveaway. So like I said, retweet. We'll pick it in a few days. Someone in the chat is correcting you, saying his name isn't Zelda, Callie.
I said his name wasn't Zelda. That's literally what I said.
I think the joke went over this person's head. Yeah.
It's all right.
I'm a fake geek.
Nope. Cool. So that's the giveaway. Yeah, like I said, I'll bring that back up at the end of the episode just to remind you who are here now and to bring it back up for people later. But a few news items I want to get through. Peter Moore, former EA CEO, is now CEO of Liverpool Football Club in the Premier League.
Cool.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, from a business perspective, that's actually, I was joking to Chris Beaumont. He's like head of GameSpot Video. He's a Liverpool fan. He's from, I don't know what part of London. I think he's from Essex or something. I don't know. But he's here in our office.
Yeah, that sounds right.
He's an actual Liverpool fan, and I was talking to him about this. But I grew up in Liverpool, New York, right outside of Syracuse. So like when I had to watch soccer, I always said I was a Liverpool fan. It was like my this is too much information, but my dad grew up in Cleveland, New York. So he always liked the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. There's a Mexico, New York. There's a Rome, New York. People from upstate New York, if you're here
Paris,
now.
Texas.
There's a Paris, Texas. We live in the Paris of the West. They've called San Francisco that before. But yeah, he's becoming
they.
EA's Peter Moore, leaving to become CEO of his favorite soccer team. The news story is up on GameSpot. He will soon join them. I'm reading through it now. He's set to move to Liverpool and begin his new role with the team in June. Team announced on his website today. Moore is a lifelong fan of the team, was born in Liverpool. I don't think there's any news yet about who's going to replace him, right?
I don't know.
Do you want to? Now that you're done with Zelda?
How many EA Sports It's in the Game jokes were in the comments of that story?
Let me check. I don't know. We have that like infinite scroll for news stories. Goob Shoe Riot is talking about Syracuse in the chat. I don't think he actually graduated from Syracuse. I think he's making fun of me. But yeah, EA had a whole statement, which I don't feel the need to read because it's pretty PR speak. Peter has been with us here at EA for nearly 10 years, and I consider myself privileged to have said, who is this that's talking about this? Oh, Andrew Wilson is saying this. Yeah, so it's just he's going to Liverpool in June. It's enough of that. And then just for a minor thing, if you play The Division, if you're a fan, the Last Stand DLC is out now for all platforms, so you can play that. It is focused on more challenging Dark Zone North area, as well as a PvP mode called Last Stand. The mode, which is basically organized PvP in the Dark Zone, pits teams of 8 against each other and supports matchmaking. A new incursion, stolen signal, and yeah, just more dangerous Dark Zone. I haven't played much of that game recently, but if you're a Division fan, it's probably not bad. Here's the transition into our first segment. The other day, Target on their international website leaked Middle-earth Shadow of War, which we've kind of known the sequel is in the works for Shadow of Mordor, the 2014 game, for a while. I mean, it was like people suspected it, but it was nothing confirmed. So now Target accidentally leaked it, and then yesterday, I believe, Warner Bros. Was like, yeah, this is an official thing. When we came in the morning, they said, yeah, Middle-earth Shadow of War is the thing. They showed the trailer off, I guess, like to coincide with GDC this week in San Francisco, and it looks pretty cool. You're not a Tolkien fan, Callie. Are you, Pete? You're not super into Tolkien stuff?
I read the books as a kid.
Okay.
I like the movies to a degree, but no, not hardcore.
You dabbled in the game, right? In 2014, Shadow of Mordor?
That's being generous. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I know very little about Lord of the Rings.
Okay. It was my favorite game of 2014, so I wanted to talk about kind of what to expect or what we want in Shadow of War.
Mike, what do you want in Shadow of
What
War?
do I want? So I think the thing that the game is most known for, the first game, is the Nemesis system, which I'm sure you, not having played the game, you're still probably familiar with it. It was great at the time. It's cool, or still. It was, you fight this one orc leader, and depending on how you kill him, he could come back later and have like a grudge against you, or beef with another orc leader, and you can kind of pit them against each other in this open world. And it actually felt like you were kind of molding things depending on your actions. So now they're saying you're actually going to shape the world. That could be just like,
That's a
marketing.
really broad statement.
Super broad and kind of bold, I guess. Maybe not bold, but how are we actually going to shape this world is what I'm wondering. They say there's a new stronghold system, so I wonder if like the factions will be affected more from how you take down specific outposts and whatnot, because that's a big part, right? You're this Ranger Talion, and you're going around Mordor with Celebrimbor here. He's a Wraith now, but he was originally the elf who crafted or helped craft the original Ring of Power. But in this trailer, it shows that you are, like Talion and Celebrimbor were kind of fused, and he's now part Wraith, part Undead Ranger after having died in the first game, which is not really a spoiler. It happens right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And, Sauron's back. This whole trailer is showing Sauron. For those of you who don't know, he's the Dark Lord. He's the evil dude.
I knew that
lava
one.
and that massive helmet isn't telling you. But so you're crafting your own Ring of Power to rival him. It looks awesome. I loved the first game more than I can explain. I don't want to get into that too much. On a different segment, maybe. But I am really what I want is for the world actually to react to me. Like they're saying it is, but I want the strongholds to kind of change based on what I do at each one, not just the Nemesis system. I want that to be somehow factored into the world, because it was really impressive how that worked in the first game. You get that little like checkerboard of orcs. It shows this like a experience tree almost, but with like the orc leaders, and depending on how you kill this one, that'll affect this one's status, and you essentially are like pushing this one guy up to the top so you can assassinate him and take out the faction. It was great. And I want that to work with the strongholds, not just the enemies. So of your brief time with the first game, like what, did you play like an hour or two?
Yeah.
Did you like the open world at all?
I mean, the little I saw of it, yes. Mobility is something that I like really highly value in games, and if I remember correctly, the character was pretty good at like scaling walls and being kind of like stealthy and sneaking around, but covering ground and stuff. So that felt really good. Like the movement felt great, and watching other people play, it looked like you definitely unlock a lot of powers that make you more swift and lethal. So I found like things that were interesting to me, but it was just at a point in time where I wasn't ready to play the game, be it because of assignments or whatever.
The mobility was great. There was this one move you unlock later on where you land and then you tap a button and he does this dash. So you could fast travel, but it felt kind of too good. It was almost like not as good as like Sunset Overdrive or something, but I didn't want to fast travel because it felt so good to move around, right? And the stealth mechanics worked. The stealth and the combat were kind of, like to name the game that kind of started this trend. It was the Arkham Asylum combat, right? The attack and counter system with a few other things thrown in, but the dichotomy between the Wraith attacks and the Ranger attacks was what really drove this game, I think, aside from the Nemesis system, which was the drawing factor. And I want to see more of that, especially now that you have your own Ring of Power. I want to just be able to be completely overpowered at the end of the game, because even at the end of Shadow of Mordor in 2014, I didn't ever feel overpowered at the end because these orcs were becoming so good, the Nemesis
scale,
ones.
yeah.
They scale to you, yeah. And I actually kind of want that. I want them to make me feel like I actually have a ring of power. I don't want it to be just this narrative device. I want it to be this thing fueling my abilities, right? Because it used to be just ranger abilities or wraith abilities. Now I actually want to just be like blowing the shit out of people, essentially.
You just want to blow a bunch of people is what you just said.
Blow the shit out of people, which is still not a good term. I don't know. If you're here in the chat, let me know what you want to see in Shadow of War.
You meant blow up.
Yes.
I have a question. So, not about that.
Goddamn, both of you.
I like to joke that the extent of my Lord of the Rings knowledge is the several Led Zeppelin songs about Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Gollum and the evil one.
yeah, ramble on, et cetera, et cetera. So, thank you. So, my question is, should I even care if I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings? Like, what's the draw there for? Like, you're a super fan. What's the draw there for me?
See, I don't know whether you could jump in with this game. You could jump into Lord of the Rings with Shadow of Mordor. You could play Shadow of Mordor without needing to worry about Tolkien backstory. They do a really good job of using Tolkien's world as, backstory, but having a really good self-contained story in itself.
Is it canon or is it not canon?
It's canon. They use the actual events aren't canon, but they use
like canon
Celebrimbor is a
lore.
real character. The elf Celebrimbor is a real character. He helped forge the Ring of Power. But I don't believe these games are canon. And I could be completely wrong, but from playing through that, I think it was 3 years ago.
Who's to
it
say
wasn't.
anymore?
Yeah.
His son, right? Tolkien's son is still alive and kind of controls like the publishing and like all of that.
They're super strict. It's actually crazy how close to not being made Shadow of Mordor was because of how strict the Tolkien estate is with everything. Sidewinder 2057 does not care. Shadow of who give a fuck. It's not canon. Thank you, Apex Penguin. I didn't think so, but they are using real characters. Celebrimbor is a real character. So
the lore itself, the backdrop is all in line with. Okay, that's basically what I was asking.
So yes, to answer your question, I think you could easily. Are you asking if you could just jump in with Shadow of Mordor to get ready for this? And not you don't need extended Tolkien knowledge.
What is in Shadow of Mordor for someone like me
who doesn't?
Who just wants to listen to Led Zeppelin all day?
Turn that on while you play. It would probably be a fun time. But yeah, I think the open world itself, I thought it would be boring, right? These muted colors, but then there's another part of it later on that's pretty lush Mordor, despite the fact that you think of all this, volcanic igneous rock.
Are there big spiders?
Yeah, I believe so.
Are there trees that walk?
I don't think there are Ents, no.
Is there a guy who talks to himself in the cave?
Gollum?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in it.
I'm really exaggerating how little I know. I know that his name is Gollum.
It's Gollum. Yeah. Anything
because
else?
They mentioned Gollum in Ramble On.
So would you say that you want Shadow of War to kind of just build on Shadow of Mordor without making you feel excluded for not knowing much about Tolkien?
Yeah, that's my big concern is hearing you talk about how much you love this game. I want to give it a shot, but I'm worried that I will be too basic for it.
Yeah, no, I love the game for reasons completely separate from my Tolkien fandom. We don't have Alexa Ray Correa here anymore. She was the Tolkien genius here at GameSpot before she went on to new projects. But she was also always the one talking about how this game did a great job of, like I said, having a self-contained story within Tolkien's world, but not necessarily pushing you away if you don't care about Tolkien. I like the game for reasons apart from that. I love the game for the Nemesis system, how it reacts to you. I hope in Shadow of War that they actually make good on that promise to kind of the world being shaped at your hand. A lot of games say they're going to do that, but we'll see if Shadow of War actually does. It's coming out in August. It's not crazy far away.
Super fast. That'll be here before we know it.
Yeah.
That will, especially because everything leading up to that is crazy. Through March, we have a lot of releases, especially with the Nintendo Switch launching, which we're going to get to for those of you who are in the chat.
How many more open world games are coming this year?
I don't know. Because last year was actually kind of sparse for open world games for once. And it's...
You're talking to the... No.
No. But compared to years before that, last year there was 5, which is not much.
Being the person who reviewed most of them felt like a lot.
Yeah. No, and it would be if they didn't just dominate games now.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking about Breath of the Wild in a little bit, and I think Breath of the Wild would be a breath of fresh air. Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Fresh Air.
You're the first person to make that joke, Mike.
Oh, I'm not.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, so if you're watching this on YouTube or GameSpot, let us know in the comments and whatnot. We're still reading the chat, but let us know what you want in Shadow of War. Details are kind of sparse. We're going to see gameplay on March 8th before we might see more stuff leading up to its August release. I'm sure we will. But yeah, it's official. Warner Bros. Announced it. Target leaked it the other day. Nice job, Target. Thank you. You can watch the trailer. It's up on GameSpot right now. You can check out more from the game. I think you should play Shadow of Mordor if you have not yet. There are a lot of games coming out, but Shadow of Mordor is still a fantastic game.
How long does it take to play Shadow of Mordor? 30 hours?
30? I'd say that's good. 100%, maybe
Drop in the
35,
bucket
40.
To do the salt thing.
Yeah. So let us know what you think. All right. We have talked a lot about Horizon Zero Dawn.
Well, let's keep going.
Let's keep going. We stopped doing these just like straight up ask the reviewers, like Q&A, but we figured it was pertinent because, again, we've talked about so much, but now the game's out. Came out yesterday, despite the fact that it's been lauded all over the place for about 2 weeks now. Mm-hmm. I love it. Callie?
I love it. I can't stop playing it, actually.
It's really good. Pete, you reviewed it. You gave it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions for you. I'm going to let you kick it off, though. What do you love about this game?
Boo, where to begin? I think combat is sort of first and foremost the best part about the game. Aloy is super agile, right? And she fights these like monsters that are really machines that are super fast, and they always sort of have an answer for everything that you throw at them. So you're constantly juggling this really diverse set of tools, facing off enemies that have a diverse set of abilities, and trying to sort of just come out on top. But you also have a chance to be creative with the stuff that you have. And so really like the flow of combat and being able to mix things up and do things differently, and the diversity of the monsters themselves. Like as you explore the map, you run into a lot of crazy variations, and combat is really the thing that drives this game home. But it's also a very beautiful world, and Aloy is a really great character. Like she's not perfect. Like there's some dialogue that feels a bit, like sort of just drummed up for side quests and stuff. Like, okay, but as a character, like she starts off as someone who doesn't know a lot about the world, but she comes into something to own something that no one else really has ownership of or knowledge of. And that sort of propels her down this path where she begins to just be the only person who really gets what's going on in the world and has mastery over it all. So it's a really incredible journey for that sense. And yeah, throughout in the middle, it's just great combat, just driving you through it.
We've spoken extensively about the world itself, but it's weird. I'm usually someone who prefers a focus on gameplay over story.
Yeah.
But when they can mesh, that's great. But this is one of those games where this world is awesome. I mean, like we talked last week about their unique take on the post-apocalypse,
Right.
I think they're calling it. What is it about that blend of nature and technology that really drives the story and the gameplay forward? Or does it, I guess?
Well, it drives it forward in so much as like no one in the world understands where this technology, like the ruins of technology around them came from, right? So you see stuff that looks familiar to us, maybe a little bit more advanced in today's technology, but like you can't really piece together what it's for, why it's there, like what happened. And so you do piece that together over the course of the journey, and you begin to understand sort of how technology and science can run amok, especially in the hands of men, right? Not specifically males, you know what I'm saying, humans. And so, yeah, like, and this is sort of just seeing, how the society, collapsed and how all this is viewed from a perspective where people haven't learned the lessons that they should have learned from this, right? And maybe there's someone sort of stumbling down a similar path that led to the destruction of the world, whatever. So, it's kind of hard to explain without spoiling too much, but certainly Aloy's connection to the technology and how she uses that to essentially piece together what happened in the world is how those two elements mix really well. Because everything is super wild, but you deal with everything using some form of technology or another.
Yeah, the footage we're watching right now is a lot of the combat. So fighting against humans was the part that I found pretty boring, but
yes.
But we did see a lot of hunting the machines, the animals. Callie, from your time, have you encountered a lot of different enemies, and what do you think of the combat in this game in terms of the hunting mechanics?
I really love the combat. Like Pete said, like the movement. Aloy's movement specifically is it feels natural, even though she's like super agile and super strong. I don't feel overpowered against machines, but I also don't feel like you'd think arrows. You're like, oh, it's gonna take 1,000 arrows to take down this machine. But you get like really specific like weak points that you can target, and I really really like that as an element of combat is kind of slowing things down. That's actually a perk you can get, and trying to like you can see right there, pinpointing areas of weakness. And it I don't know. It feels really good. I like the slow drip of mystery of like what happened to the world. I love stuff like that in general. And for this, because it's so slow and you're doing other things and you're dealing with tribal politics and like a lot of the main quest is dealing with that over dealing with the technology that you don't know a lot about. And so I think it all blends together really well. I would agree that the human combat is probably the weakest, but I had a lot of fun stealthing my way through like bandit camps. Like I don't hate it. It's just the machines are much more interesting because they're like behemoths, and you have to do
your face.
yeah, you have to do a bunch of like rolling and dodging and setting traps on the fly, and so that's much more exciting. But I did like the stealth element at least of fighting humans.
What do you think of the actual like open world structure as far as the quests you're doing, right? Because it's made people making comparisons to a Far Cry game where you're like kind of clearing these outposts and then unlocking parts of the map, which unlocks side quests. People are kind of comparing it to Skyrim, but I think that's more the world itself. How does the structure of this game function overall, and does it work well?
So, I mean, the things with like clearing out outposts, like you don't really have to do that.
They're avoidable.
Yeah, I actually chose to do only the ones that were required of me. And then after I beat the game, I went back and I was like, well, I want to keep playing, so I'll do these now. But really what drove me through the world was the idea that, okay, you can craft a lot of really interesting pieces of equipment or purchase them, and you need to have a lot of resources to do it. So, I would find myself, and there's a certain item that you need very specific items to get. So basically, I was driven through the world by wanting to find the things I need to attain new technology, right?
Yeah, I did that too, like targeting certain machines because you need a certain
Right.
part to get a better bow or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fast travel is an option, but you also have the ability to hack robots to sort of ride them through an environment, and that's really fun. Like combat on horseback feels great. So I tried not to fast travel too much through this game, but I tended to avoid the things that were maybe like, these are the missions out in the world. I actually just preferred doing the sort of, if you can call it standard fare, right? Like just combat and gathering. Like that was good enough for me, and that I think the game did really well.
Sorry, Callie, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I kind of not stumbled my way through things, but I instead of looking for things to do, I would just kind of happen upon something, and like I would happen upon an abandoned camp and be like, oh, there's items here that I need. I might as well take it down. Like I found it more natural. I didn't have to ever look for something to do. I never wanted for something to do, even when I wasn't busy with a main quest. And I kind of delaying the main quest because I just want to keep playing. And I even hunting like flesh and blood animals for things is fun. Like I'm like, oh, I need a boar skin, so I'm gonna find the best place to hunt boar. Like
it's a very satisfying feeling to drawing your bow and hitting an animal and just gathering the thing and keeping going. And then
But I hate killing fox. You need fox skins for like
for carry capacity to upgrade your inventory and stuff.
And I love foxes, and it was really sad that I had to kill them because they make this awful noise, especially if you they make this horrible noise, especially if you do concentration, so you slow time down because they kind of move erratically. And I would
Same
hit
noise
it.
a fox makes when it dies in real life too.
Yeah, and it's like, "Rah!" And I'm
kidding,
like,
I never-
yeah, I know. Yes, I know. I chose to ignore that. Thank you. Yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Killing machines doesn't have that effect because they're machines. They don't have souls.
We would probably spend more time talking about Horizon if we hadn't already for 2 weeks. Pete, your review, 9 out of 10 on GameSpot is up on GameSpot.
Yeah.
We also have other things to talk about today, which everybody wants to talk about Zelda, which we're coming up in like right now. But yeah, in the meantime, if you are still interested in Horizon Zero Dawn, it's worth playing. I love it. Callie loves it. Pete loves it. 9 out of 10 on GameSpot. Go read the review. We have a lot of coverage of it, a lot of videos, guides. If you're just getting into it, if you haven't picked it up yet, it came out yesterday. Go check it out. Game is well worth the $60.
It's crazy to think it just came out yesterday.
It's super
Right.
weird.
I
Yeah.
think I played it like an era ago.
Yes. All right. On to the game of the hour, it would seem. We have a lot of embargo restrictions.
Yeah.
Man, I am tripping up today. I played Zelda until like 2 a.m. last night. That was that was the most time I've had with a Switch too. We're gonna get into the Switch specifically at the end of the show today. But we want to devote a lot of time to Zelda, kind of based around the idea of whether it feels like a Zelda game, because from what we've been talking about, and I know like what like we're right next to Giant Bomb. We've been talking to them about it too, and Callie, you're a Zelda fan,
Yes.
to say the least. Pete, you are too. So am I. And a lot of the things that we're all saying around the office is that we're excited for this game for reasons other than we usually are for a Zelda game.
Sure. Yeah.
Based on what we've seen and what we've played.
Frankly, it's the unexpected.
Yeah.
It's the discovery of things you never saw coming and never realized were possible in the game. And all that exists around, what appears to be a traditional Zelda game. So in my mind, it kind of feels like the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And to clarify for people watching, if you have questions in YouTube chat and Twitch chat, GameSpot, send them our way. I have a few written down, but I have a few things on Twitter. Pete, your review will be up. Can you talk about when it'll be up?
Yeah, 3 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So it's coming in hot.
Yeah. Early review based around, I'm assuming, like Japan times, something like that. Who knows? Yeah, so 3 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. You can see the full review. Pete's pretty much done with it for the most part. You got to edit it and whatnot.
Oh, with the review?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
not the, yeah.
Right. Been cramming on the review. There is a lot to unpack in this game, and we can technically right now only speak about the first 5 hours, but even then there's more to talk about with this game than most games.
Yeah, I mean, that was my experience even playing demos at E3 and stuff, and playing a demo more recently is everybody did a different thing. And everyone I talked to, it was like, oh, I went over here and I saw this, and there was this cute thing that happened when I cooked, and like Link hums when he cooks, and it's like the one thing that I took away from the demo I thought was I just love the little details.
Right.
And then everyone I talked to was like, oh, well, I went to a mountain and you can freeze, like you get really cold, and I'm like, I didn't even know there was a mountain I could go to in this demo. Like it even in like a 15-minute demo, you have all of that to unpack.
After almost a week playing this game, almost nonstop, Mike, in playing it last night for just a couple hours, discovered something.
First 20 minutes.
First 20 minutes, discovered something I had never seen before.
Can we talk about that or no?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the thing about this game. I mean, aside from the survival elements, aside from just how enticing it is to explore. I know when the first Zelda ever came out, that was like the first time people were, holy shit, I want to explore every inch of this. And then Ocarina came out and showed you could do it in 3D. From the first 5 hours that we're talking about, to me, it felt like I looked out over this world. This shot right here that we're looking at is just like, that's a promise on this game's part. It's like, you're going to fucking like get wrapped up in all of this. And it does feel a little bit like a Zelda game in some of the mechanics and, obviously the aesthetic and the charm and the music and a lot of what the story that's unraveling that I am just getting into. Pete, you have seen much, much more than I have. But yeah, we're finding things continually. We're having these emergent situations. We're having these water cooler conversations that we haven't really had since like Metal Gear Solid 5. But even not to that, this is more than that.
This something else.
This surpasses that, and that game was filled with creative opportunities, right? But those were always at your hand. It was sort of like how you had control over the elements at play and what you decided to come up with. This is almost just about seeing things happen because of what an enemy is doing or something that you just never considered before, because the game just doesn't tell you much at all. It's basically like, all right, you have to go save the princess. What it tells you,
Calamity Ganon is taking over the castle.
Ganon, go to these things to get a couple powers.
You've been asleep for 100 years.
You've been asleep for 100 years. Go to these shrines, get these powers, and then basically like, all right, man, you gotta go. Just go. And like one of the first combat situations I got into, it was, the thing we saw at E3, right? Where it's like a skull looking like cave. There's some goblins inside of it. Yeah. And I go up there with, I found something better than a tree branch, but it was still just like a basic club. And I roll up there and I'm trying to like sneak and like I kill the guy on the platform and he's got a bow and arrow. And so I try to use that. But by the time I've got that, there's other goblins that are killing me. It took the first combat encounter, like the first real one, took me like 3 or 4 tries to solve.
Yeah.
And it was because I had to find a bow and arrow and shoot a rope to drop an explosive thing to blow up the barrels of the guys inside the cave. And it's just all these little like intricate things that you have to like take care of and consider. Because if you don't, you're gonna get your ass handed to you.
Yeah.
It's very easy to die in this game, both in combat and if you push yourself too far.
Yeah, to go back to what we were talking about, I was playing for about 20 minutes and I got a shield. And I had a bow. You kind of just stumble across these things. To clarify, it's not just you don't get the fairy bow. It's not the Kokiri bow. You get a bow, and you're going to get like 10 more in the next 20 minutes.
Every single weapon you get from killing an enemy or finding it in the field. You're not going to shops and purchasing weapons. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. You're getting these abilities with that Sheikah slate, that thing that's hanging on his neck around his belt. It's kind of like the Focus from Horizon Zero Dawn. Now that I think of it, the way it's framed narratively, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I had a bow. I didn't have any arrows. I went up to this bokoblin camp. I was holding my shield up. A guy was pointing a bow and arrow at me. I was like, oh shit, he's about to hit me. And he shot me, and the arrow stuck in my shield. I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't have any arrows left, so I kind of I just retreated because there's 4 other guys. I didn't want to fight them because this game's pretty tough and pretty unforgiving. So I went to, not holster, but put my shield back on my back, unequip it to run away. And I was like, oh, I wish it would have shown the arrow still in the shield, and it disappeared. I was like, damn, that sucks. But then I was like, oh, holy shit, it just added that arrow that was stuck in my shield to my inventory.
Yo,
so
that's so cool.
Yeah, so I was talking to Pete and Rob, and apparently they didn't even know that, and I've been playing 20 minutes, and we're still seeing things that the other, how many hours have you put into it now? Can you talk about that?
I don't know if I can. I can't remember. But
you put a lot.
I've been playing it for almost a week, almost nonstop.
And you didn't see that, or you didn't notice it. But
right.
That's the thing. There's so much shit going on in this world. You're always thinking it's difficult, but I think that works, right? Because in old games, I was just talking to these NPCs in Zelda for the sake of it, right? I was just saying, I want to know more about this world. But here, they tell you useful stuff.
Yeah.
This guy has an item that you eventually want to trade to him for, or this person. I had this really cool moment yesterday before I was leaving the office where Matt and Jimmy, who were both playing it too, Jimmy was having a conversation with this person, and I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't want to spoil it. I don't even know if I can't talk about this specifically, but Jimmy had this conversation with this person. They had this proposal for him, and he said, yeah, it turned out he shouldn't have. But then Matt knew not to say that to this person because he had spoken to this random NPC in Kakariko Village, which is nuts. It's
what?
I don't know if it affected the outcome, but they both had these completely different experiences within the open
Did it have
world.
to do with a merchant?
No.
Oh.
It's like this clan I was talking to you before.
Right. Yeah.
And they were talking about, he's like, oh, holy shit, that person told you this? He's like, yeah, it was a water cooler conversation where they were discovering that they both had completely different experiences.
It's like when you were in school and you would have a playground conversation about I don't know how to beat this boss. How do I do it? talking to your friends, when Ocarina came out and it'd be you can go here and how do I do this? And it's a total. And now we're seeing snowboarding, which is crazy. But the thing I love about it is I haven't had that in a long time. A lot of times I can just kind of figure out a game. I don't necessarily need to ask the people I know for how do I do this? What's the best way to do this? And this one is I could talk about this for, I feel months. I feel I'm gonna be playing this for months and never see everything.
People will be flooding Reddit and NeoGAF for years to come, with stuff from this game. This is Rob Handler's footage of snowboarding down a mountain on a shield, kind of Legolasing. And then you see this, kills these 3, and he could have dropped a bomb here from the paraglider.
Right.
Yeah.
But he chose to do something way cooler.
Yeah.
He's about to do it here, actually.
I can't wait to talk about this game without any restrictions.
Yeah, because you've seen a ton. I was watching you play some, very, very late game stuff, and it was crazy watching. I hope you. Yeah, there you go. So you could drop the remote bombs, and see, you're like a fucking bomber plane. Oh my god! But then the thing to consider when you're paragliding above a lake or something. Your stamina is running out when you're holding it. It takes energy to hold on to that when the wind is pushing you every which way. If you fall in a lake, it takes stamina to swim. You could easily drown, so you can't just aim for the middle of a lake to negate falling damage.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe you can, because I found this item that is just bokoblin guts, and I didn't think anything of it other than, I'll sell this or maybe I'll cook it. But if you read the description, it says something along the lines of maybe you could use this to make something float. And so I was talking to Spencer in the office about it, and he was like, because I tied it to a weapon and the weapon floated, and I was like, okay, well, I don't get the point of that. And then he was like, oh, maybe the weapon, if you have that attached to it and you're holding it, will help you float and you won't sink. And I was just like, oh my God,
yeah,
that might be possible.
I was overhearing a conversation about that, and it blew my mind. It's I'm never gonna finish this game. Yeah. I feel like I will always be playing it.
I think something that's immediately apparent is that you just have. You don't feel like you understand. Where so many games go out of their way to be are you sure you got everything?
Yes.
Do you understand it all?
Specifically, Zelda games, some do
Sure.
that. Skyward Sword,
Skyward Sword.
I hated how it did that.
Coming off of Skyward Sword, this is such a don't want to say breath of fresh air, but yes, it's crazy. Helmed by the same director too, which kind of blows my mind.
Yeah, and obviously, like, the fact that there's so much detail in this game and so many interlocking systems is probably a testament to the fact that it's the biggest team Nintendo's ever had on a project, right?
Yes, and it also has incorporated Monolith Soft, who made Xenoblade Chronicles, and the world is super evident of their involvement. It's great verticality, and even something as simple as like a large plane will look interesting, even though it's just a huge field of grass. They managed to change the elevation just the right ways, and there's been a lot of time and energy put into even what seems like the most basic elements of this game, and I think that's only possible when you do something like a company Nintendo making the biggest game they've ever made.
And that's the thing about it. It's constantly reminding you, not in a bad way, that yeah, it's a Zelda game, but I'm not thinking through it like I usually do a Zelda game. Usually a Zelda game, I'm kind of, the open world is just there to get me to the next dungeon, or to get the next the Megaton hammer, or the fairy bow, or the hook shot. In this, I'm constantly thinking, do I have enough like pepper soup or whatever it is to keep me warm when I'm going into the mountains, or else I'm going to freeze to death, and I have 4 hearts. I'm going to be fucked if I don't.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is we started this conversation talking about, like, is it more like, are we excited because it's a Zelda game, or because it's doing all these interesting things? And it's very different from how I would normally approach Zelda. Like, I thought I had the language of Zelda down, and then playing this, it's like, oh, I have to completely learn a new vocabulary to be able to play this game.
Yeah, the first 5 hours, there are these shrines you go into, and there are these tutorial. I mean, they are kind of tutorials for how you use the Sheikah Slate for the powers,
but it's
right?
like, it's just a splash screen.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just a little thing that says, press this button to activate this power.
And you figure it out
That's
in the dungeon.
Yeah, you figure, but even, it's like a tutorial, but it's not, because those dungeons are really shrines. Like, they grow in complexity over time. So, yeah, they start basic, but it's certainly not like anywhere near what Skyward Sword is doing.
I want to keep talking about this game forever. We could talk much more about it next week.
Yeah.
When your review is up. Your review will be up tomorrow at 3 a.m.
And Rob
Pacific.
Handlery and I will be doing a live stream tomorrow at 8 a.m.
8 to 11, 3 hours, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
We're just gonna
Pacific time.
talk about all the things I can't talk about today, but
Yes.
I wish I could.
I have a shit ton of questions I want to get to, because I would be remiss if I did not.
Don't be remiss, Mike.
You mentioned degradable weapons. Andrew Jelly on Twitter says, do the degradable weapons in Breath of the Wild dampen the experience? They're not as fond of those types of mechanics in games. How do you feel about that?
It certainly feels strange at first, because Zelda games, you sort of always measure your progress by what gear and equipment you have, right? So to lose a weapon that seems cool, it's kind of like, oh, man, that's a bit of a bummer. But you have an endless supply of weapons, and because they evolve over time, like in terms of where you are in the world, what's available in that particular environment, you get to use like a lot of different stuff. It's not just like 4 swords. I know it's the title of a Zelda game, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not just having a handful of swords to deal with. You are dealing with, I mean, I have no idea how many variations of weapons. So yes, the things break, but it's super fascinating to me just that it doesn't actually impede on the experience. Because Link is struggling to do everything, right? And you could argue that, like, well, maybe weapons don't need to break for him to still struggle. But like, it's just that extra little notch of just dialing it up and making you have to consider a little bit more. But you're never out of weapons, right? You have the bomb thing that you can use. If you find an enemy that has something when you don't have any weapons, throw a bomb on him.
Yeah, they're not a limited quantity. Well,
Right.
they're limited in that it's based on like
cooldown time.
mana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's no real mana to speak of though.
Right, it's
cooldown.
it's a cooldown.
Yeah.
Sure. And yeah, I found that the degradable weapons was constantly changing my approach each time. Like, I have this bokoblin club I can use.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I'm set. But then that breaks. The next camp I come up to, I have a twig. Maybe I could just smack them with it, or I could go up to this fire, light it, and throw it at them to blow up these barrels next to them, which I might not have done if I was just going to go in with that bokoblin club again.
Yeah.
I mean, you're forced to just sort of try things differently all the time, and that's a great thing.
Yeah. I think the degradable weapons work. I would not have thought I would have said that in a Zelda game, but
I normally don't like that mechanic, because it's always like, it seems tedious, but it works very well.
yeah.
Because you're constantly managing your like your resources, and that's a big part of what you're doing. And so it goes very well with what's already there, versus some games I'm like, okay, I really like my sword broke, really? Okay, I guess I'm gonna go do this thing that's, if the rest of the game is linear or something, it seems very unnatural, and this is very different.
Right. CD14 on Twitter was asking, of all the 3D Zeldas, which one is Breath of the Wild from the first 5 hours that we've played most reminiscent of?
I didn't play a lot of Twilight Princess because I couldn't get past that wolf tutorial. In terms of, I just didn't want to play it.
Yeah.
You know, I got a really strong vibe, similar to the way I felt when I played Ocarina of Time. Maybe not because of the mechanical similarities or the systems at play, but it just, that sense of just like, this is new. Like, this is new and exciting, and, you know, it feels like Zelda, but it's doing things I've never really done in a Zelda game before. And like for Ocarina of Time, that was just being in 3D, you know, to a point.
Yeah.
But here it's so much more. But it's that I get that same sense of just amazement.
It definitely recaptures that feeling. Like I remember playing Ocarina of Time and you see Death Mountain in the distance and you, like realizing you can go there was such a big deal. And obviously now it's, you know, it doesn't have, replaying it doesn't have that same feel because you know you can go there. But that scene we saw earlier where you're looking out and there's like a mountain in the distance, it's like that feeling of Ocarina of Time times 1,000.
Yeah.
And I love that it's giving me that sense again of I don't even know where I'm going to go yet, but I'm going to go over there. I'm going to figure it out.
Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the Zelda series has kind of been just like spinning its tires for a while. You know what I mean? Like
They introduced these new mechanics. Like I think Link Between Worlds was fantastic.
Well, sure.
That was an awesome game.
Right. But not something that is like revolutionary.
Sure.
Right. The way that this seems to be. Like it's I mean, that game leaned quite heavily into the fact that like, hey, it's the old system, but we've tweaked it a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is just kind of like nothing old is here. This is all new. This is very different.
Based on the first 5 hours, it's almost like Nintendo didn't want to say what makes a Zelda game and how can we iterate on that. It seems like they asked themselves, how do we change the definition of a Zelda game?
Yeah.
And that's super exciting. And I wish we could talk way more about that. But more specifically, is aiming in Breath of the Wild on either platform? Someone, JG in the Twitch chat was asking, this is coming to Wii U. They asked. Yes, it is. Do we know when? The specific date? Can we talk? It's
same day.
Launch day.
Friday.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but we have not tried that version.
Yeah, we have not tried it, but yes, JG in the Twitch chat is coming to Wii U. But someone asks, on either platform, is aiming on Breath of the Wild exclusively reliant on the gyroscopic functionality? Can you disable it?
You can disable it. Yeah, you can choose to use it or not. I actually like to use it on Switch, especially when I'm playing in handheld mode.
Yeah.
And with the Pro Controller, it helps too. There are times like when precision is necessary, where like you're manipulating something using like a magical power, where it's like you gotta get a weird angle, and it's like, all right, I'm now twisting my Switch like this. I should just use the analog stick.
Yeah, when I was using the Joy-Con, the frame controller with the Joy-Cons on it, I was aiming with this analog stick, but then when I switched to the when I changed to the handheld tablet, I was using the gyroscope, and I love that. It feels really good. It feels like it does on the 3DS. I have a bunch of questions about this. So what are the consequences of death in Zelda? I think a lot of people are wondering, is there like a Dark Souls-esque thing, or is it just a game over and restart?
It's just a game over and you restart from one of the last of many autosaves. The game does a good job of realizing like when you're entering an area that might be threatening and saving you know, the game for you.
And you can also just do like an old school Zelda pause and save.
Yes, and you're allowed one slot for manual saves.
Okay, so you can't. It's not like Skyrim where you can have a shit ton saved up.
No.
Yeah.
And you can just be like, I messed up. I'm gonna start from this save.
Right.
That's my classic move.
I like that though. If I had a ton, I would maybe go back like 10 saves and then restart these outposts.
Then you're hacking the system. Then you're not really part of you're not playing the adventure the way it's meant to be played.
Yeah, with one save, you have to rely on just the items you have, or at least that you did in your last save, and I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
But then like just a lot of questions in general. That last question, the consequence of death, was George M on Twitter.
All right.
But yeah, in general, it just feels like a simulation game almost, and like how these mechanics can, not like a Sim City or anything, but how these mechanics can interlock and how these systems are kind of layered on top of each other.
Yeah, there's a pretty good physics model at play.
I've only played 5 hours, or I played like 4 hours, and we can only talk about the first 5 hours. But so far, I feel like I'm thinking constantly more than I do in open world games. I love Horizon. I've been playing a lot of that. But even then, I'm still kind of going through the motions to get from point A to point B if I'm not hunting an animal. Even when I come across certain machines that I've fought before, I'm going through the motions. I have this muscle memory, and I turn my brain off and just play. Zelda, I'm constantly thinking so far.
Yeah.
And that's weird for a Zelda game. I mean, you know, you go into dungeons and you do puzzles and you're thinking constantly, right? And like, you know, the Water Temple or the Fire Temple or Snow Peak Ruins. But now I'm thinking like, I'm halfway up this cliff. My stamina is half drained. It is cold, so I need to somehow get to a place where I can eat this soup I cooked earlier that will warm me up and resist the cold. But I might fall off this cliff before I get up there. So now I'm balancing stamina and my cold, my like hypothermia I can get, which is going to deplete my health. I'm fucked if I can't get up to the top of this cliff in the next 10 seconds.
You're
right?
like, it's constantly like you're weighing like opportunity cost of things and weighing like, okay, here's what I have, here's what I can cook, here's what I can do if I don't fall off this cliff, which I might.
Yeah, no, I mean it's some people are saying it looks like it's more of an open world survival game with a Zelda finish.
Yeah.
But to circle back for the end of the segment to the question I was asking before, does it feel like a Zelda game?
It does to me.
Callie, what about you?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, there are story points early in the game that we won't spoil that I think sets up a very Zelda-like story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's little touches as well that are very familiar.
Yeah.
That I think only people feel at home despite all that's new and strange around them.
There's puzzle solving.
Yeah.
There are dungeons, maybe not in the traditional sense of you're going to go to this one, get this medallion, then you're going to have to go to Death Mountain and get this.
As we've been told countless times, you don't even need to go through the dungeons.
Right.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
you can once you get off the first area, you can try to go right to Ganon.
I mean, even when it's not
That's crazy.
right,
I want to see that.
even when it's not similar to what we know about Zelda in terms of gameplay or structure, it still, to me, has like the spirit and feel of Zelda. I think Nintendo generally does this really well, is giving like a certain kind of charm and characterization with very minimal without using words. Nintendo's really good at that. And so in that sense, I feel even in the beginning a lot more of Zelda in that sense rather than in structure.
I'm just reading this. I don't know if we have a new story up, but apparently the prototype for Breath of the Wild back in the day started as an 8-bit game. At a GDC talk just now, Breath of the Wild director, I might be butchering this, Hidemaru Fujibayashi, revealed a prototype of the game that looks remarkably like the original 8-bit rendition of Legend of Zelda, but with concepts introduced in Breath of the Wild. It was used as a proof of concept.
Yeah,
when they
okay.
first
No, I
tested
can
it.
see that. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And that was The Verge just published that story. I just saw it in my Twitter feed, that's cool. Because I think this game is actually kind of hewing closely to what made the original Legend of Zelda great at that time in 1987.
Well, it certainly just like lets you loose, right? With like,
Yeah.
here you are. Like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
You can go here, but you're going to get fucked up if you don't have
Yeah.
this sword.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
You meet a hermit. He gives you a thing.
Yes.
Good luck.
Talk to an old man.
Yeah.
Gives
Yeah.
you a hint.
We would love to keep talking about this game. We could talk about it much more after Pete's review goes up tomorrow morning, 3 a.m. Pacific time.
Yes, and check for the video review on site and on YouTube and all that.
And then at 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific, Pete and Rob Handler will be playing straight through 3 hours of it just until they drop.
And everything is fair game. All restrictions are off. So
if you
we
wanna
can talk about whatever.
Yeah, we're kind of holding ourselves back now, especially Pete, because he's played so much of it, but tomorrow he will not have to. So the review will be up. I'm sorry if I didn't get to more questions. I wish we had more time. Keep sending them to Pete. Bother him. Sorry, Pete. But yeah, thank you for everybody who sent them in via Twitter and via Twitch and the YouTube chats. I appreciate it. And let us know what you think if you're watching this on GameSpot after the fact or YouTube. We appreciate the comments.
Yep.
So now to segue into the Switch itself.
Yeah.
Jimmy, his review is up.
It's live.
Mm-hmm.
What
What did he give it? We don't
Yeah,
give scores
I
to
know.
reviews.
he gave it a. There's no joke with the Switch there. There's no easy one. I don't know. But Pete, you've probably spent the most time in the office with it. What's your overall, in a sentence? We're gonna talk more than a sentence, but right now, hit me with the synopsis.
The things that Nintendo promised aren't just marketing speak. I definitely felt myself experiencing these, like great moments for having a console that is both, portable and something you can play on your TV. And I think it's got great build quality. And in terms of technical performance, it doesn't stand up to PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, but
Sure.
so far I don't care.
Yeah.
For what it is, I think it's really good.
I also think the amount of technology they packed into the Joy-Cons
Yeah.
is really impressive. Like I went to a GDC Switch thing, and the rumble, you can get so many distinct sensations from it.
The HD rumble.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to describe, obviously, because it's definitely feeling based. But I was really impressed with it. Just as far as like I know, Nintendo just isn't focused on competing with the technical prowess of like PS4 or Xbox One, which doesn't matter to me. But I was really impressed with how they hold up and like how good they feel to hold. I was really surprised because they're so small. I thought I was gonna feel awkward with it, and I didn't. So I really like that too. I like the different controller options, and there's a reason to use all of them. I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's overwhelming per se, but I definitely, you first sit down, just like any console, you first sit down and figure it out. But with this, it's like, okay, I can play like a handheld with the Joy-Cons on either side of the tablet. I can dock that and put these in this like wireframe essentially to play them that will also charge them.
You have to buy the one that will charge them.
Right, we just have that. I can play with the Pro controller. I can play if I want to play a multiplayer game. Which have you done much with like the holding the Joy-Cons like by itself?
Played a little bit of Snipper Clips at the New York event a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
But no, I mean, you've got games like Street Fighter, Bomberman, 1-2. No, 1-2 Switch isn't really like that. But no,
the trailer showed people playing like the next Mario Kart like that.
Right. Yeah. It's so in that sense, it's not ideal. But that said, it's a very sleek solution for multiplayer that I think people will, adapt to when the situation dictates that, hey, let's play some games together. I don't want to have two big controllers with me. This is what we've got. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I also really like playing in handheld. I really love handheld gaming, probably because I'm super nearsighted. And playing on TV, sometimes if the text is small, I get really irritated. But I thought maybe it would be a little cumbersome. I love my 3DS and I love the size of it. I have an XL. And I thought maybe like, this is gonna be too big for me to really play handheld for an extended period of time. And I haven't had that experience. I've really enjoyed it. It's super comfortable, and I like having that option. It's something I thought would maybe feel gimmicky or like, oh, I'm not actually going to use this way, but I really am, and I like playing handheld actually probably more than any other way. I
was taken aback by how good it looks on when you're playing handheld. I mean, obviously it's not like 3DS graphics. We know it's better, but I still like pulling it out. There's our tech editor Jimmy right now trying it out, but. I was playing Breath of the Wild last night. I had this moment where I docked it, and then I was like, shit, I gotta go make dinner.
I don't have pockets that big. What the heck?
I'm not gonna put it in my pocket, but maybe I don't have nice khakis like Jimmy does. But this thing, Pete, what are your thoughts on the portability aspects? I think you said you played a fair amount of Breath of the Wild in handheld, right? Yeah,
super comfortable to hold. It's my preferred way to play Zelda at the moment. But I've spent a lot of time with the game, so like I've had this very personal connection to it, and to just sort of like tuck into a couch and like just be there with it, and right in front of my face. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's still just as good on a TV, But in terms of portability, so far so good. The battery life is basically about 3 hours, which I think is fair given what the system is. It's hard to compare it to something like an iPhone or a 3DS, right? I mean, this is running games that I've never seen run this. Zelda just looks incredible on this playing it in handheld mode, and I've never seen a game look that good on a portable device before. So,
yeah, I mean, we talked about this several episodes ago about games that are made specifically for a handheld that you're playing in like 10, 15 minutes at a time on your commute.
Sorry, someone in the Twitch chat, forgive me if I didn't see your name in time. It was like 0XS just said, is that a Nintendo Switch in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Sorry. Kelly, I'm so sorry.
Never mind.
You interrupted her for that?
I caught me off guard. I'm sorry. Like it was funny after seeing Jimmy put the Nintendo Switch in his pocket.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, I don't even remember what I was saying. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I just saw that and I couldn't. Yeah.
What was I talking about? Games that are designed for handheld that you play like on a commute and you can kind of stop and start, versus games that are Switch games are maybe more geared towards you're not playing on the go, but you have the option to take it with you and then set it up wherever your destination is, I think is the difference.
Buy a carrying case. I can tell you, I've been using one, and it's great.
Sure.
I just put it right in my backpack. I don't worry about it. But I'm scared for every Switch in the office that doesn't have a screen protector or a case, because things are going to get banged around.
Yeah, I remember I was really nervous putting it in my backpack. I was like, I put like a sweater around it, and I'm like doing all these like low-tech hacks because I don't have a carrying case right now.
Yeah, I put like a Breath of the Wild t-shirt around it that I found on my desk. It was appropriate.
That works.
What was like the Kelly, from your experience when you were playing, you said you prefer handheld. Did you take it out, or were you mainly just going to different rooms in like your apartment or something?
Oh, I was just kind of hanging out in the house. I've been hesitant to take it out like on the train just because of embargo stuff. Honestly, I don't want people to like bug me. I don't want people to talk to me when I'm on the train. For like any time, I never want people to talk to me on the train. Or anytime. But ever.
Okay, well,
right,
Pete,
so Mike,
what do you think of this?
I was so tempted because I took a longer train than I normally do the other day, and I was like, oh, I really want to take this out and play, and then I restrained myself. But for the most part, just taking it from the office to my house to a different room in the house is like, I just love that I don't have to stop playing because I'm cooking something.
Yeah.
And my room is downstairs and the kitchen's upstairs.
We kind of touched on this already, but using Breath of the Wild as like a frame of reference, how do things look on the Switch?
They look great. I mean, there's very little, if any, anti-aliasing. So you see some jaggies, but that game's art style kind of drives. It's more than that though. It's the game supports like when it does chug, it's because it's dealing with a lot of like physical logic in terms of like, okay, well, how do you move through grass and how does wind affect grass, like those sort of things. So it actually looks technically impressive in some ways, but clearly there's striking a balance between visual fidelity and frame rate and all that. But I think it looks great.
Yeah,
I really like the way Zelda looks on it.
Yeah, like I said, I liked how it looks a lot in handheld, and it felt pretty good in handheld. The one thing I noticed, I don't know if this was just like the Switch I was using, the Joy-Cons felt slightly loose when I was holding it in handheld, like kind of. It didn't feel like one thing. It felt like I could tell they were separate from the tablet a little bit. It wasn't like they were falling off, but they were a tiny bit like.
Yeah, the one that we are sharing is like that, but for the most part, they aren't like that.
Okay.
Yeah, mine doesn't feel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe we just put them in weird.
Maybe you broke it.
It's my fault. Yeah.
There was a time where I found myself like wondering if that was the case, and I was kind of just like torquing them a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was like.
I thought you said twerking. You said torquing. Okay.
Well, twerking.
I thought you said twerking. You were twerking with your guitar.
Yeah.
Twerking them.
I could show you.
Do it.
No. And it was like, okay, if I really, really try, I can feel this give. But like under normal circumstances, I feel like this thing is really sturdy. That said, don't drop it. I don't trust that the latches are really that sturdy. So you're gonna have to baby this thing. It's not gonna be like a phone you can toss around or your 3DS. I don't think it'll be this like really durable piece of equipment. It's still. It's still not a console, right? But it's something you need to be mindful of.
Not everyone's as strong as you, though.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm a real strong dude.
you should also just take care of your belongings, I think.
Sure. Big blank spot in our knowledge of the Switch is like internet capabilities, right?
Yeah, who knows?
Calvin Delaney on Twitter kind of just answered the question, but he said, does the Switch have a way to sign into the internet on trains or in hospitals? Does it have a browser?
There's no browser that I've seen, but what I do know that I can confirm, which I think is pretty rad, is that it will support like connections to networks where you have to like go to a web page to log in.
Oh.
So yes, like maybe the hospital, maybe the hotel. Here on our Wi-Fi network, because we can't, for whatever reason, get on certain networks wirelessly, that'll work. Yes.
What do you think of the home menu, the browser in general? Sorry,
Super
like
slick.
the console browser.
Slick right
Yeah.
now, but it's all pretty basic. Like they're adding a few things come launch day, but I love the little sound effects. I love the little animations. It doesn't feel overburdened like any other mobile device I'm used to using. It's cleaner than the 3DS. It's cleaner than the Vita.
Yeah.
It's just a really slick interface that just has what you need.
Callie, you're saying you prefer to play it handheld again, but how did you feel like actually switching between the TV and the handheld? Like how fast was it? How responsive? How simple to use is it?
It wasn't that difficult. The only thing I had trouble with is I didn't read the instructions very well, and so it was like, oh, press L and R and then A, and I was just pressing L and R because I just didn't
To
read
switch
it.
to handheld?
Yeah, to get the because I put the Joy-Cons in the kind of the boxy looking controller configuration, which looks a lot more uncomfortable than it is. Like I said, it's all the
Feels a
controller.
little small, but
It feels a little small, but the controller configurations for the most part all work for me pretty well, depending on what I'm playing. But yeah, that was just a user error where I just didn't read the instructions because I was so excited to play.
But by and large, you
But
put
it's
it in the
pretty
dock
easy.
and like 2 seconds later it's on your TV.
Yeah, it's not.
You
It's
pull it out and you're ready to go.
super convenient, and well, I guess that's not really the word I was looking for. It's it doesn't feel cumbersome. It doesn't feel like a chore. Like,
It's seamless.
I gotta get up and do this and then wait for it to change. It's just it just happens.
Last question on Twitter from Kirsten Huston. Kind of a future question. Do you think Nintendo will follow Sony and Microsoft's lead in releasing like a Switch Pro or something similar to that
absolutely.
concept?
Yeah.
They have to, right?
I mean, they already do that with 3DS also. I mean, like they have a there's a precedent for that.
Yeah, but I think it's even more likely now because they're working with NVIDIA to make their chips, and NVIDIA is a company that goes through iterations of their hardware, and it's not like Nintendo has to have someone make really like custom stuff for them, right? And I think the form factor will allow you to replace something just like the tablet or just the controllers without having to do the whole package. So I would not be surprised. In fact, I expect them to do it.
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for everybody on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and GameSpot for getting in your questions. I wish we could answer all of them. I wish we had more time to talk about Zelda. I wish we could talk about the Switch more. I wish we could even talk about Horizon more, but we don't have time today. We really appreciate you stopping by. I just want to reiterate, we have this mouse, this Razer
Death Adder.
mouse for go to GameSpot's Twitter account, retweet the tweet about this giveaway. Later on the week, we'll pick a winner. It's U.S. only. I apologize. And then Gunner computer eyewear, as it were, these optics to protect your eyes from harmful video game lasers.
I feel like I'm watching The Price is Right. I'm supposed to guess how much.
650
Vanna White.
yen.
1 cent, Bob.
And yeah, as always, everybody, thank you for joining. Thank you to the people in the back, Eric Tay, Jean-Luc Seipke, and Richard Lee. We have the Zelda live stream tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific to 11 a.m. Pacific. The review will be up before that at 3 a.m. Pacific from this here, Peter Brown.
God willing.
Yeah. We have a lot of Horizon coverage if you're kind of holding off on the Switch. We have the Switch. The review is up on GameSpot right now. Go check that out. Jimmy, our tech editor, wrote that up. It is out in the wild now. His thoughts, sans internet.
It's out in the wild. It's on the horizon. More puns.
Sweet. So again, everybody, thanks for joining. Hopefully we'll see you back here later. Oh shit! Later on today at 2:30, we have Ralph Colantonio and Ricardo Bear from Arcane Studios are coming in to play Prey with me. I'm gonna be hosting that live stream at 2:30 p.m. Pacific. So come by. I'm excited about that game. I want to check it out. So stop by again later on, and then again Zelda tomorrow morning. We hope to see you then. Until then, 2:30 today. Have a good day.